Imagine that this is the first experience you have ever had. You've just been born, although of course you don't know that you've just been born. You have not yet opened your eyes. You have no past to refer to, and you cannot conceptualize your experience. There is just this experience, nothing to refer it to or compare it with. This experience is the first experience you have ever known. Ask yourself, what can I say derived from this current experience about myself? All we know is that we are. I know that I am. I have no knowledge of being a person, a body, being a man or a woman, of having an age. There is just the awareness of being, without the awareness of being anything in particular. The awareness of being is our primary, most intimate experience. It is the experience upon which all other experiences will subsequently be built. And as we grow up, our awareness of experience will gradually obscure our awareness of simply being. And as a result, the awareness of being will progressively disappear into the background of experience, overcome by the foreground of experience, thoughts, images, feelings, and so on. The awareness of being is like the silent depths of the ocean that lies beneath the turbulence of the currents and the waves. Always at peace, inherently fulfilled, lacking nothing. Now imagine that you are on your deathbed. Your eyes are closed, the room is quiet. Your memory has gone. What can you say about yourself without reference to memory? All we would say about ourselves is, I simply am. When all the accumulated memories and experiences have left us, what remains? The awareness of simply being. Ask yourself the question, is there any difference between my very first experience of myself, the awareness of being just after I was born, and my last experience of myself, the awareness of being just before I die? Have any of the intervening experiences affected or changed my being in any way? Imagine that we were to ask our being, how much time elapsed between the moment when we were aware of being having just been born and the moment we were aware of being just before we died. We ask our being, in your experience of yourself, how much time passed between these two experiences? Of course, if we were to ask thought this question, it would say 80 years. But if we were to ask being about its experience of itself, we would not know the difference between these two experiences. Indeed, it would not experience them as two experiences. The awareness of being is always the same experience. It would just say, I eternally am. Nothing ever happens to being. It is always in the same pristine, luminous, peaceful condition. Now imagine that just before you pass away, somebody comes into the room. You have no memory, so you don't know who they are. What is the one thing you would say to them? It's a friend or a family member, but you don't know that. I love you. So even after we've forgotten everything about the person, we don't even recognize their face or know their name. We've forgotten all the experiences we shared with them. The experience of love, the experience of our shared being remains. It's why my mother said to her eldest granddaughter recently, I don't know who you are, but I know that I love you. Just as being is the fundamental nature of ourselves, so love is the foundation of all relationship. It is simply the same recognition of being, the same awareness of being, but in the presence of another, rather than alone by ourselves. Being and love are identical experiences, if we can call them an experience. Now ask yourself the question, what is the first thing I can say for certain about any object in the world? Any object in the universe. It might be a planet, a tree, a table, an atom. Before we know anything about the object, even if we know nothing about it, we know that it is. And our knowledge that it is not dependent upon anything we know about the object. Its isness is the most fundamental fact about that object. Ask yourself the question, is there a difference between the isness of all objects? Is the isness of a chair, the being of a chair, different from the being of the sun? And is that different in turn from the being of an atom? Or is isness always the same? Ask yourself the question, does the isness or being of a thing change or tarnish as that thing deteriorates? And as the thing vanishes, what happens to its being? Does its being vanish, and if so, into what? Or do the objective qualities of the thing, its name and form, vanish into being? Understand and feel being as a great underground ocean from which everything and everyone emerges, in which everything and everyone exists, and into which everything and everyone dissolves as it dies or disappears. But nothing is added to the ocean of being. When a person is born or an object appears, The ocean of being doesn't change or evolve as the person or object changes. And nothing is taken away from being when the object or person disappears or dies. Everyone and everything borrows its temporary existence from eternal, infinite being. Everyone and everything is a temporary name and form of that. The more love and attention we give our own being, the more that same being seems to emerge in other people and animals and objects. The world as it so becomes increasingly transparent to being. For the devotees and mystics amongst us, increasingly transparent to God's presence. We begin to see one thing in everyone and everything. One thing which is of course not a thing. We begin to feel ourselves as that, and to feel everyone and everything as that. The unity of being begins to outshine the multiplicity and diversity of objects and selves. Before we know anything about a person or a thing, we first know and feel its being. We experience that person or thing as if we were their being, experiencing them or it from the inside as their being would experience their self. And this ability to enter into the other, so to speak, or to become the thing, is the experience of love. We no longer see or know the person or object as a thing. We become them. In fact, we always were them, but we now feel that. We recognize ourselves as their very own being. Just as everything we see in the world shines with the same light, the light of the sun. Understand and feel that everyone or everything you encounter shines with the same being. Don't believe the testimony of your senses, which persuade you that there are 10,000 things. Believe the evidence of your heart. Feel only one infinite being, God's being, shining in and as everything and everyone. When we look inside ourselves, being shines as peace. When we look outside ourselves, being shines as love.